The year is 1438 BC. Deep inside the Grand Karnak Temple, teams of stonemasons are not building, but systematically destroying. They are chiseling away the cartouche of Pharaoh Hatshepsut. The year is 1438 BC. Deep inside the Grand Karnak Temple, teams of stonemasons are not building, but systematically destroying. They are chiseling away the cartouche of Pharaoh Hatshepsut. Exactly 20 years after her death, Thutmose III, Egypt's greatest military conqueror, orders a ruthless Damnatio Memoriae. Every statue smashed, every inscription erased, obliterating his stepmother from the historical record. Exactly 20 years after her death, Thutmose III, Egypt's greatest military conqueror, orders a ruthless Damnatio Memoriae. Every statue smashed, every inscription erased, obliterating his stepmother from the historical record. But why? Was Hatshepsut the wicked, power-hungry usurper that early historians claimed? To find the truth, we must rewind 41 years to 1479 BC, during the mighty 18th Dynasty. But why? Was Hatshepsut the wicked, power-hungry usurper that early historians claimed? To find the truth, we must rewind 41 years to 1479 BC, during the mighty 18th Dynasty. In 1479 BC, Pharaoh Thutmose II dies after a brief, unremarkable reign. He leaves behind a politically unstable Egypt, having ruled for perhaps only 3 to 13 years. In 1479 BC, Pharaoh Thutmose II dies after a brief, unremarkable reign. He leaves behind a politically unstable Egypt, having ruled for perhaps only 3 to 13 years. The designated heir is Thutmose III. But there is a massive problem. The new king is merely a 2-year-old toddler, born to a lesser harem wife named Isit. The designated heir is Thutmose III. But there is a massive problem. The new king is merely a 2-year-old toddler, born to a lesser harem wife named Isit. Enter Hatshepsut, the great royal wife and half-sister of the deceased king. Crucially, she possesses pure royal blood, being the direct eldest daughter of the revered conqueror Thutmose I. Enter Hatshepsut, the great royal wife and half-sister of the deceased king. Crucially, she possesses pure royal blood, being the direct eldest daughter of the revered conqueror Thutmose I. To prevent a succession crisis, Hatshepsut steps in as Queen Regent. This was not entirely unprecedented. Ancient Egyptian queens like Mernith and Sobekneferu had previously held supreme executive power. For 7 years, from 1479 to 1473 BC, she dutifully manages the empire. As the god's wife of Amun, she already controls vast estates and immense religious authority in Thebes. For 7 years, from 1479 to 1473 BC, she dutifully manages the empire. As the god's wife of Amun, she already controls vast estates and immense religious authority in Thebes. The geopolitical stakes are incredibly high. Only 70 years earlier, around 1550 BC, Egypt had barely expelled the foreign Hyksos invaders. A child king is an invitation for rebellion. The geopolitical stakes are incredibly high. Only 70 years earlier, around 1550 BC, Egypt had barely expelled the foreign Hyksos invaders. A child king is an invitation for rebellion. Then, in year 7 of the toddler's nominal reign, 1473 BC, a radical, unprecedented political earthquake occurs. Hatshepsut does not step down. She elevates herself to the ultimate position. Then, in year 7 of the toddler's nominal reign, 1473 BC, a radical, unprecedented political earthquake occurs. Hatshepsut does not step down. She elevates herself to the ultimate position. She crowns herself Pharaoh. Taking the throne name Matkare, she does not depose young Thutmose III, but rather establishes a co-regency, where she serves as the dominant senior king. She crowns herself Pharaoh. Taking the throne name Matkare, she does not depose young Thutmose III, but rather establishes a co-regency, where she serves as the dominant senior king. To legitimize this shocking move, she launches a brilliant propaganda campaign. She claims divine conception, stating that the supreme god Amun-Ra took her father's form to directly sire her. To legitimize this shocking move, she launches a brilliant propaganda campaign. She claims divine conception, stating that the supreme god Amun-Ra took her father's form to directly sire her. By heavily funding the influential Karnak priesthood, she secures the Oracle of Amun's public endorsement. The priests officially declare that Amun himself has chosen Hatshepsut as the rightful sovereign. By heavily funding the influential Karnak priesthood, she secures the Oracle of Amun's public endorsement. The priests officially declare that Amun himself has chosen Hatshepsut as the rightful sovereign. Her visual representation undergoes a striking transformation. She orders royal sculptors to depict her with male musculature, the traditional shendit kilt, and the golden pharaonic false beard of authority. This was not cross-dressing, but a theological necessity. In the Egyptian concept of ma'at, cosmic balance, the office of the pharaoh was inherently male. She became the role to save Egypt. This was not cross-dressing, but a theological necessity. In the Egyptian concept of ma'at, cosmic balance, the office of the pharaoh was inherently male. She became the role to save Egypt. To secure her unprecedented position, Hatshepsut knows she cannot rely on military conquest alone. Instead, she pivots to a revolutionary strategy: overwhelming economic prosperity and monumental architecture. For centuries, the foreign Hyksos occupation had severed Egypt's vital trade arteries to the Levant and Sinai. Hatshepsut systematically rebuilds these networks, flooding the royal treasury with imported wealth. For centuries, the foreign Hyksos occupation had severed Egypt's vital trade arteries to the Levant and Sinai. Hatshepsut systematically rebuilds these networks, flooding the royal treasury with imported wealth. This immense wealth funds a cultural renaissance. To execute her grand vision, she appoints Senenmut, a brilliant commoner who rises to become the chief architect and her closest confidant. Under Senenmut's direction, construction begins on Djeser Djeseru, her mortuary temple at Deir el-Bahari. This three-tiered architectural marvel, built directly into the towering limestone cliffs, remains unparalleled in history. But Hatshepsut's ultimate ambition lies far to the south. She sets her sights on the legendary land of Punt, a mysterious realm located in the modern-day Horn of Africa. Punt is the fabled source of myrrh, frankincense, and electrum. However, direct Egyptian access to Punt via the Red Sea had been completely cut off for over 500 years. In year 9 of her reign, around 1470 BC, she orders the construction of a massive naval fleet. 5 heavily modified ships are built from imported Lebanese cedar wood. The logistical challenge is staggering. These massive vessels must be built on the Nile, disassembled, carried across the grueling eastern desert, and reassembled on the Red Sea coast. Led by Chancellor Nehesi, the 5 ships, each over 70 feet long and carrying 210 sailors, rowers, and soldiers, finally set sail down the treacherous, reef-filled Red Sea. After months of perilous navigation, the Egyptian fleet safely drops anchor on the exotic shores of Punt. They are greeted not with war, but with cautious diplomatic curiosity. The local ruler, King Parahu, emerges to meet the Egyptians. He is depicted in Hatshepsut's temple reliefs with a distinct, pointed beard and holding traditional throwing sticks. Beside him stands Queen Ati of Punt. Egyptian artists meticulously recorded her unique appearance, noting a pronounced curvature of the spine and a heavily built, powerful figure. Rather than initiating a military conquest, the Egyptian delegation lays out peaceful offerings: bronze daggers, battle axes, and finely crafted jewelry, proposing a lucrative exchange of goods. The Puntites are astounded. The trade agreement is sealed, initiating what will become one of the most successful and meticulously recorded maritime expeditions of the ancient world. The holds of the 5 ships are immediately thrown open. The systematic loading of Punt's immense botanical and mineral wealth begins, an event that will define Hatshepsut's legacy. The fleet makes the perilous return journey across the Red Sea, its hulls groaning heavily under the weight of an unprecedented botanical and exotic cargo. Arrived at the capital city of Thebes, the unloading of the ships is a visual spectacle the Egyptian populace has never before witnessed in their lifetimes. The most staggering achievement is a botanical miracle. Exactly 31 live myrrh trees, their delicate root systems meticulously preserved in soil within massive woven baskets. Along with the trees comes a menagerie of exotic wildlife. Live baboons perching on the rigging, apes, foreign greyhounds, and fierce southern panthers led carefully on leashes. But it is the raw, tangible wealth that secures the empire. Mountains of pure gold rings, electrum, massive elephant tusks, and dense ebony wood flood the royal treasury. Hatshepsut publicly dedicates this staggering haul to Amun-Ra, establishing a flawless narrative. The gods explicitly favor her reign, showering Egypt with unimaginable prosperity under her command. By year 11 of her rule, roughly 1468 BC, Egypt reaches an absolute economic zenith. The wealth of Punt funds an unprecedented architectural explosion from Nubia to the Nile Delta. To ensure her triumph outlasts human memory, she turns to Senenmut. She needs this victory immortalized in stone, transforming economic success into unbreakable political legitimacy. She commands that the entire narrative of the Punt expedition be carved in painstaking, literal detail into the middle portico of her grand mortuary temple at Deir el-Bahari. These staggering reliefs become the first visual documentary in human history. They record foreign flora, aquatic life, and complex diplomacy, completely departing from the traditional, repetitive smiting of enemies. In a masterstroke of environmental engineering, the 31 myrrh trees are actually planted on the massive temple terraces, creating a lush, fragrant Garden of Amun, rising miraculously from the barren desert. Hatshepsut has achieved the impossible. She is an undisputed, phenomenally successful pharaoh, ruling over an empire of unparalleled prosperity and peace for nearly 2 decades. But in the shadows of this golden age, Thutmose III is no longer a toddler. He is growing into a physically powerful, fiercely intelligent young man, with a legitimate claim to the throne. Rather than assassinating him, Hatshepsut makes a highly pragmatic decision. She places the young king into the Egyptian army. Far from palace politics, he masters the chariot, the composite bow, and tactical warfare. For years, Egypt thrives under this extraordinary dual engine. Hatshepsut, the master builder and supreme statesman, and Thutmose III, quietly forging himself into the most lethal weapon the ancient world has ever seen. In 1458 BC, during the 22nd year of her reign, the great pharaoh Hatshepsut dies peacefully in her early 50s. Modern forensics suggest bone cancer, not foul play. She is laid to rest in the Valley of the Kings, inside tomb KV-20, alongside her father, Thutmose I. The transition of power to her stepson is entirely seamless. Thutmose III finally assumes sole control of Egypt. Crucially, he does not immediately attack Hatshepsut's monuments. There is no instant revenge. He has far more pressing issues. The moment word of Hatshepsut's death reaches the Levant, a massive geopolitical crisis erupts. The powerful king of Kadesh rallies a coalition of over 330 Canaanite princes to rebel against Egyptian hegemony. This enormous enemy force gathers at the heavily fortified city of Megiddo, a vital choke point controlling the main trade route between Egypt and Mesopotamia. If Megiddo falls, Egypt's empire crumbles. In 1457 BC, Thutmose III does not hesitate. Within months, he mobilizes an army of roughly 10,000 men and marches relentlessly northward at a blistering pace to crush the uprising. Reaching Aruna, he calls a council of war. There are 3 routes to Megiddo. His seasoned generals advise taking the wide, safe, northern or southern routes, pointing out the obvious dangers of the Central Pass. The central route, the Aruna Pass, is so narrow the army must march in single file. An ambush there means total annihilation. The enemy assumes no general would be stupid enough to take it, which is exactly why Thutmose III chooses it. He personally leads his men into the claustrophobic Aruna Pass, gambling the entire fate of the Egyptian Empire on the element of pure surprise. The path is so rugged that they have to completely dismantle their heavy war chariots, carrying the wheels, frames, and weapons on their backs for miles through the hostile terrain. Against all odds, the entire Egyptian army emerges from the pass completely undetected. The Canaanite coalition forces, who had divided their troops to guard the other 2 routes, are caught fatally out of position. Thutmose III does not wait. Riding in a blinding chariot plated with pure electrum, he personally leads the center charge. The historical texts describe him like a shooting star, bringing destruction. The psychological impact is devastating. The Canaanite lines break almost immediately. It is a complete rout. The rebels abandon their chariots, their weapons, and their camp, fleeing in sheer terror toward the safety of Megiddo's walls. But then, a fatal error occurs. Instead of pursuing the fleeing enemy and capturing the city gates, the Egyptian soldiers stop to loot the abandoned enemy camp, mesmerized by the gold and silver left behind. This lack of discipline cost them a quick victory. The rebel kings, including the king of Kadesh, are hauled up over the city walls by their clothes. The gates slam shut. The grueling 7-month siege of Megiddo has begun. For 7 grueling months, the Egyptian army starves the fortress. Inside Megiddo, food and water run out. The great Canaanite rebellion is slowly choked to death. Finally, the starving enemy princes emerge from the city gates, crawling on their bellies to kiss the ground before Thutmose III, begging for their lives. Previous pharaohs would have flayed them alive. But Thutmose III executes a stroke of geopolitical genius. He spares their lives, but confiscates all their weapons and takes their eldest children back to Egypt as hostages. These foreign princes are raised in the Egyptian court, Egyptianized in language and culture. When their fathers inevitably die, these culturally loyal sons will be sent back to rule as pro-Egyptian puppet kings. The physical loot is staggering. Egyptian scribes obsessively recorded the capture of 924 enemy chariots, 2,041 mares, 200 suits of bronze armor, and immense quantities of gold and silver. Returning to Thebes in absolute triumph, Thutmose III pours this unimaginable wealth directly into the Karnak temple, just as Hatshepsut had done before him. He initiates his own massive architectural program. The walls of Karnak are soon covered in the annals of Thutmose III, detailed military records ever produced in ancient Egypt. The traditional pharaonic motif returns with vengeance. The giant warrior king holding a mace, violently smiting the enemies of Egypt by their hair. The era of peaceful trade is officially over. Megiddo is just the beginning. Over the next 20 years, Thutmose III launches an astonishing 17 military campaigns into the Levant and Syria, ruthlessly expanding the frontier. His ultimate target is the powerful Mitanni Empire in northern Mesopotamia, the superpower that had backed the Megiddo rebellion. To crush them, he must cross the mighty Euphrates River. In his 8th campaign, he performs a logistical miracle, echoing his stepmother's Punt expedition. He orders boats to be built in Lebanon, mounted on ox-drawn carts, and dragged hundreds of miles across the dry Syrian desert. He uses these boats to cross the Euphrates, devastating the Mitanni lands. The Egyptian empire has reached its absolute maximum territorial extent, stretching from the Fourth Cataract in Nubia to the Euphrates in Mesopotamia. This staggering conquered territory becomes a perpetual engine of wealth. Annual tribute flows into Thebes, copper from Cyprus, cedar from Lebanon, gold from Nubia, and slaves from Canaan. Modern historians often crown him the Napoleon of Egypt. He never lost a single battle. He transformed Egypt from a regional power into a true, unassailable global superpower. Yet, despite being the most powerful man on earth, as he enters the 42nd year of his reign, an old man looking back on his legacy, he is continually confronted by one undeniable fact. It is now year 42 of Thutmose III's reign, around 1437 BC. 2 full decades have passed since Hatshepsut's death, and suddenly he issues a shocking, empire-wide decree. He commands a systematic Damnatio Memoriae, the total erasure of memory. Teams of specialized stonemasons are dispatched to every temple, monument, and obelisk bearing her name. At Deir el-Bahari, her magnificent sphinxes and colossal Osirian statues are ripped from their pedestals, smashed into pieces, and dumped into a quarry pit nearby. But strangely, at Karnak, her towering 340-ton obelisks are not destroyed. Instead, Thutmose III builds a sandstone wall completely enclosing them, hiding them from public view while keeping the structure intact. For centuries, historians assumed this was an act of bitter emotional revenge, a resentful stepson finally lashing out. But the forensic evidence completely destroys this theory. If Thutmose III despised her, why did he wait 20 years to erase her? As an absolute autocrat, he could have destroyed her monuments on day 1 of his solo reign. The answer is entirely political, not personal. Thutmose III is an old man looking to his own succession. He is preparing to pass the empire to his son, Amenhotep II. There is a severe problem. Just like Thutmose III himself, the young Amenhotep II is the son of a minor, non-royal wife. His claim to the divine throne is politically fragile. If Hatshepsut remains fully recognized as a legitimate pharaoh, it sets a dangerous precedent. Any female relative with pure royal blood could theoretically challenge his son for the ultimate power. To protect his son, Thutmose III realizes he must rewrite reality. He cannot just erase Hatshepsut the person. He must obliterate the very concept of a female king from the historical record. The stones of Thutmose I, Thutmose II, and himself. By doing this, he creates a seamless, fictional narrative for future generations. A direct, unbroken line of male kings passing the throne smoothly from father to son to grandson. It was the perfect political crime. The physical wealth and architectural glory she built were claimed by men, while her identity was buried under the same time for over 3 millennia. For generation after generation, priests would walk past the strange, walled-up obelisks at Karnak, completely forgetting the name of the female king who had raised them to the sky. Thutmose III dies in 1425 BC. Amenhotep II ascends the throne unopposed. The Damnatio Memoriae is a total success. Hatshepsut is officially gone. For over 3,000 years, the name Hatshepsut was completely lost to humanity. Thutmose III's Damnatio Memoriae had worked perfectly. She was a ghost. That is, until 1822, when European scholars finally cracked the Rosetta Stone, unlocking the language of the pharaohs and allowing the modern world to read Egyptian hieroglyphs once again. As 19th century archaeologists began clearing the sands of Karnak, they found the strange masonry walls encasing the obelisks. When they dismantled them, Hatshepsut's golden name was revealed to the light. Her name was found, but where was her body? In 1903, the legendary British archaeologist Howard Carter discovered a looted tomb in the Valley of the Kings, known as KV60. Because they bore no royal insignia, Carter left them there. Decades later, another piece of the puzzle emerged from a royal cache. A small, unassuming wooden box bearing Hatshepsut's royal cartouche. Inside the box were her mummified liver and intestines. But nestled among the wrapped organs was something completely unexpected: a single, loose, human molar tooth with a broken root. In 2007, under Dr. Zahi Hawass, the Egyptian Mummy Project decided to solve the mystery. They brought the anonymous, overweight mummy found on the floor of KV60 into a state-of-the-art CT scanner. The digital scans revealed a woman who died in her 50s. The bones showed extensive metastatic bone cancer, severe arthritis, and poor dental health, the grim reality of ancient life. But more importantly, the high-resolution 3D scan of her skull revealed highly specific dental defect, a missing molar in upper jaw, with a piece of the broken root lodged in the bone. In one of the greatest forensic moments in history, scientists measured the stray tooth from Hatshepsut's wooden box. It was absolutely perfect, microscopic fit into the mummy's empty socket. Subsequent DNA testing linking her to the mummy of grandmother Ahmose Nefertari provided the final, undeniable proof. The floor of KV60 was indeed the lost pharaoh. The scan also allowed scientists to reconstruct her true physical form. She was not the idealized muscular male pharaoh depicted in stone propaganda. The ultimate irony of history is that Thutmose III's attempt to erase her actually saved her. By encasing her obelisks in solid masonry to hide them, he inadvertently protected them from weathering. Today, her name and her grand temple at Deir el-Bahari outshine almost all other pharaohs. Today, modern historians recognize that with Hatshepsut's 21-year economic miracle, Egypt's golden age would not exist. Her massive 340-ton obelisks and the punt trade funded the empire's entire future. Conversely, Thutmose III's legendary 17 campaigns and the capture of 924 chariots at Megiddo secured Egypt's borders for centuries. He transformed her vast wealth into an impenetrable global superpower. Forensic analysis of her remains reveals a woman who endured severe physical pain. Yet her surviving statuary projects the immortal, unwavering strength of a pharaoh who saved her dynasty. Just halls away lies the mummy of Thutmose III. The greatest military mind of the ancient world rests near the stepmother he ruthlessly yet pragmatically attempted to erase from time. The psychological irony is profound. By walling up her magnificent Karnak obelisks to hide her name, Thutmose inadvertently shielded them from millennia of erosion, preserving her legacy perfectly.